So, are you comfortable?
Yeah, sure.
Brilliant. So, Niall, would you like to tell me what education means to you?
It means the world to me, education. It means that it was ever since I turned my back on school and started playing truancy, and I was say about 14 or 15, and thought I didn't like education. It took me about another two years to realise it was great, and I started going and having to figure out how to get some qualifications and etc. So I started going, and it was in that time before this particular hegemony we've got now. So it was in a time when you had sort of there was lots of courses that you could go and do, and lots of access to things. So I could go and resit GCSEs as they are now, O-levels then, and do A-levels then. And by the time I'd left school at say 15. I'm just thinking in that context of what education, because most people's education's from school, I think. So now school was just a nightmare and was a very negative experience. So yeah, not great, but got better is the short answer. But what it means to me is lifelong learning. And also just almost in any situation you're in, you're learning from people. And that's a good thing about FUB in lots of ways, is that you learn sometimes more from people than you do the people there attending than you do from the academics. You sit there and you can sort of tell to some extent with groups on how sophisticated they are about the learning process, because when I was an undergraduate, people would always look to the lecturer. If somebody raised a question, they would look to the lecturer for a response or a reaction. Once people have gone through various academia, they start to look at each other and start to talk to each other. And I think that's always a great point of liberation. School's a sort of place. I mean, one of the things that really typifies school for me was I'd moved from Manchester when I was 11 to sort of like near Oldham and Rochdale and places like that. And it was a big shock because you're a new kid in the class and you had to work your way in. So otherwise you start off with what they used to call in those days like the spastic kids and that. So you're just there and everybody sort of picks on you at first. And then you get into fights as a boy and you go through all that bit. And then you get to a certain level and stuff at school where people have respect for you. And that becomes really important to you. So while I was going through that period of not getting much regard or respect from fellow people, I was really good, I was really ahead, and I was put upper class because I had nobody to relate to. I was just bullied, I had to watch out for the bullying, but otherwise I was reading and things like that. As soon as I got to sort of hang out with people, they demoted me about 3 classes. I was rubbish, academically in that way. And it was a sort of, I mean, yeah, one thing that typifies the school was the teachers would basically just leave the school open, but they would just close where they went to eat. They wouldn't eat with us, they would go to a separate place. And then you had this kind of like group of psychopaths that would roam around after dinner. I mean, young psychopaths into grooming, if you like. And they would do like trials and stuff and put people, say like, what have you done? And this was the group that they'd pick on. And the place was like maybe 2 stories, 3 stories. And they would hang people out of the window by their ankles like this. And they would say, you're on trial, answer these questions and stuff. And they go like that and just play. And when people say they were scared, or that common expression, I shit myself, people literally did because they were quite scared. And luckily nobody actually fell to the concrete, which might have stopped the whole process, but wouldn't have been. We probably didn't need martyrs like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so rubbish schooling, really. So I was out of there when I was 15 and a half. And then by the time I was 16 and a half, I was living away from home as well because my parents were very working class and they had all their values and good people, but they just expected so much of me and expected me to curfews and things like that. And yeah, I was earning money. So yeah, for a long time. But then after quite a hedonistic lifestyle and hanging out with people, I got bored of just being in pubs and doing stuff. So I'd go to, and that's in the same way you've got FUB now, a thing to go to. I'm not suggesting other people in FUB would have done that anyway, but it's a place to go to where you can learn and get a different take on life. And one of those things is meeting people as well, of different persuasions and coming from different places, you know.
I think we're kind of crossing questions, which is fine. I don't think that's a problem. But so you might feel like you're repeating things.
Okay.
But I think
Shall I say why I joined FUB?
Yeah, I'll ask you the question then, and you can go with it.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
can you tell us why you joined FUB?
Because it were cheap, love. Nah. Partly that's true. That's a bit true because I'd been an undergraduate and I didn't have to pay for that. I did it on my work record and stuff. My parents didn't even know I was at uni. And after that, I would go and do sort of postgraduate courses, and I did professional. So I worked as a probation officer once, which was a nightmare. Because I'm not very good with authority. And then I've worked as a therapist and drug and alcohol bit. So I'd done all those things that basically I'd been paid for, and then I'd worked in that particular field, or I'd got enough credit from my work record and stuff. So I was always, I'd go and I've done part of my MA, but then something would come up and I'd go away, I'd go abroad, and I would just leave it. And when I got a shot once, I came back, and you had to pay for things like that then. So I sort of didn't do it, and I just carried on with my usual ad hoc, lifelong learning bit of checking things out, watching videos, reading. Yeah, so FUB was that thing where my partner was doing a doctorate, and we paid for it for the first year, and then it was like, we got 3 kids and stuff, so it was expensive, and then the NHS picked it up. Otherwise, I don't know, I was encouraging her to continue, but it still is quite expensive. So FUB's great, I support it like that, you know.
And what does FUB mean to you now that you've been part of it for a while?
Now I've been part of it for a while. It's still got a lot of versatility, because I was talking to somebody before about different classes, going to a first year class or going to a third year class or a second year class, etc. So it's quite nice to sometimes go to those classes and meet different people and see where they're coming from. At first I found it was great, just old people, and then I could see there was a sort of a solidification in it, and there was various people that would turn up, and some people dropped out and stuff. But it's nice to see more and more people coming. It's good that, I mean, it's interesting academically. Some of the academics are quite straight as far as I see it, and they have a very different idea of how they're running it. But again, that's enjoyable too.
So will you carry on doing it? I mean,
forever. I don't know. No, I don't know. Yeah, as long as it's good, you know, and I can maybe. Just what I was just saying then about the different levels of academia and how things are applied to it. Maybe I do some research into that and do. I don't know if it depends, but I've certainly probably not going to spend loads of money on education now. I'm working on other things as well, unless I get lots of money, and then I would probably just give it to FUB. Oh. Yeah, because I'm sort of. A philosophical pessimist in that, you know, I don't know if you know it, but it's not the glass half empty, half full idea. But I don't particularly think people progress in the world. You know, like as Nietzsche has talked about, people redeem themselves through art, and people like Chiran and Leopardi and stuff like that. People that sort of, you know, they don't think society gets better. So I'm in that camp, really. But it doesn't mean that you're sort of gloomy about it. It just kind of means that you, in its best bits, you make the most of every minute or every moment. So that's, and equally with educational opportunities.
So something you've appreciated about FUB, though, is that it's sort of open access. You know, along with being free, it's also it's just there. Nobody puts pressure on you, and you come and go as you choose. And see fit.
Yeah. One of the good things is, I knew this, but for people that say just get into sort of anthropology or get into philosophy, often people don't know where to start. So it provides a platform, and it says this is what existentialism is, this is what epistemology is, and it gives you. Whereas if you just went to a YouTube vid or you started picking up a book, you'd need to do a lot more work. So it's really good academically in that sense, that you've got people that are interested in that field and will give you some feedback, or not just give you feedback but guidance as well onto what to explore.
You sound like you were fairly politically sort of, you knew your place where you...
My trouble is I've never known my place. No? That's my problem, yeah. Do you mean I perceived it as that?
Well, I mean, just knowing how you felt about things politically and so forth. I mean, has FOB kind of taken you forward in anything? Has it put anything in that you didn't know already?
I don't know about politically.
Sense?
I just think it's a great idea politically, and it's of, you know, I could think about it and say, well, lots of say academics in the liberal arts, I could see them getting a wake-up call as things have changed for them and going, wow, we need to do something about this, and they're in that position to do it. So and it's just good. All the other people that have come into it, like Ali, who isn't really an academic, who's organised it, and I know her, she's quite political in a different way than say I am. But yeah, in fact, how I heard about FUB was I don't like to say teaching, but I was facilitating a script writing group, and because I've done plays before and things like that, and had them accepted, so I felt that I could do that, but I didn't charge money for it. So that's how Ali got in touch with me and said, oh, you know, she was trying to do all the activities, I think, in Brighton that didn't cost anything, from just film nights or, you know, people just preparing food, vegan food, or anything that was happening around Brighton and Hove. And then she launched FOB, which wasn't a university at that time. It was called that, but it was just about anything, so it wasn't academic in that sense. And then just went off my radar for a bit. I carried on with what I was doing and stuff. And some people came, I'm sure through the FUB website, that came to me. And then a bit later I caught up with it and I said, oh, what, you're doing academia? That sounds good. I'll just come and see what's going on. And was happily engaged. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.